All right, we are live. So I just want to make sure I get it right here. It's Taylor Kyles and
Yes.
Brian Phillips. Is pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure.
Yep,
Okay.
you got it.
All right, cool. All right, so to break down the Super Bowl, the sixth Super Bowl championship of the New England Patriots, we have on our show two of the best writers at Pat's Pulpit. We have Taylor Kyles and Brian Phillips. If you're not following them on Twitter, if you're not reading them on Pat's Pulpit, they are the X and O guys. And so we brought them in here to kind of diagnose what happened and how the Patriots won. So Brian and Taylor, welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
What's
Excited
happening?
to be here.
Yeah, it should be fun. Should be fun. So, let's just kind of let's get right into it. Big takeaways from you guys. What did the Patriots defensively, I think is the story. What did the Patriots defensively do to slow down this Rams offense?
Oh, well, I guess I'll kick it off. One thing I think that everyone's been talking about is the coverage on the back end was excellent all night. How they went to zone, which honestly, if you told me that going in, I would have been pretty nervous because they kind of tend to give up something in zone because they are more of a man team. But they were really pretty lights out. There were a few breakdowns. I think they adjusted to that well, like obviously the Cooks play, which actually happened twice. I saw on, what was it? There was Turning Point where they adjusted because they saw that Cooks got behind, and then that was why Jason McCourty decided to keep going vertical and was in position to make that play. But an underrated part was the defensive line, like guys we don't really talk about. Lawrence Guy, Danny Shelton, Malcolm Brown, who I know Brian has a history with. I mean, obviously Trey Flowers, but those guys were outstanding, man. They really whooped the Rams offensive line, which was fantastic all year. So, I mean, got to give credit to those guys up front, the big war daddies. They were fantastic.
Yeah, I think you kind of stole it from me, but for me, man, I cannot get over watching Dante Hightower and Kyle Van Noy in that game, and like really all postseason, how unbelievably dominant those two were. I mean,
Landon
crashing
Roberts was
down.
really good too in the scheme.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought he was really good.
The
He jacked up
linebacking
one of the
core,
guys.
they were just awesome. I mean, obviously, like Adam Butler, I don't think there's a bigger Adam Butler stan on the universe than me.
Than
Like
you.
right now, like I'm obsessed with what he's done and the role he's carved out for himself. Like just collapsing sides of lines, and then Dante Hightower and Kyle Van Noy, have just been shooting these gaps on these loops, and just creating pressure from the edge. Kyle Van Noy playing spy and then closing down on Goff and even Pat Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. Like, I mean, just this bottled up athleticism that we didn't see at times at all in the regular season, and it's right when the team needs it, they get their best performance. It was just awesome.
Oh, Van Noy's been
Butler,
on.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say
Oh,
Van Noy's been on the FU tour since
Oh.
the Super Bowl ended.
yeah.
And it's been
Oh,
amazing.
I said after
Kellerman, it was great.
since Thanksgiving, he's been unbelievable, and we say it a lot. Like he's not a, we talk about it. He fits perfect in the Patriots scheme. When you take him out of his role, he struggles a little bit. But I mean, he covers sideline to sideline, and he's just the ultimate Patriot. You know what I mean? Like you guys obviously know more of what he works better, and I'm not that good at that stuff. But I mean, I love his game, and he's true Patriot.
Yeah, big thing with him is his intelligence, man. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many times where he'll recognize a screen or a run, and he's the first guy to the ball. Sometimes he may not be the one that makes the play, but he'll disrupt. He'll get in somebody's way so his other teammates can get there. Van Noy's intelligence is something I think we don't talk about enough. He's a really, really smart player, and that's why. I mean, you see it. He wears the green dot. He moves inside and out, which isn't easy to do in the Patriots defense. And really, there's no drop off. But I mean, he's such a smart guy. I can't wait. And I know Brian. I saw you tweeted something about
An extension.
something like that. I'd love to get that one in the books.
Yeah, I'm working on it tonight. It'll be out tomorrow morning. But I mean, I think they got to take this opportunity now, lock them up. They can get it to where they can save almost $2 million in cap
What do you
space to
think?
lock him up through 2022.
What do you think he's looking at?
I think I'm going to project him like around. Let me see. I just had it pulled up at like $7.625 million a year. They'll basically like convert most of his salary this next year into signing bonus, add like $6 million onto that into the signing bonus, and then it'll be typical Patriots per game roster bonuses and incentives and stuff the rest of the way. But I think it'll come out to be a 3-year extension, so sign through 2022, and then I think I've got a total value of like $30.5 million with like 20, almost 26 in new money. But it'll be less per year than Dante Hightower even.
Yeah.
And they'll save about 1.8 in cap space in this next year. But it's rewarding a guy who's clearly become, like you guys said, like a key role in this defense, and he's done it. Doesn't he feel like a guy who's been around for 10 years? Right?
He
like,
really does. He's so comfortable.
Crazy. It's wild. So I mean, they obviously, and the deal is, it's just with every deal that's signed now, it gets more stomachable with each year that passes. Even though the cap hits go up, the cap itself is going up. So really, he's going to have the same cap impact each year, and it's a good way for both teams to kind of to capitalize on him really just grabbing this role.
Yeah, I mean, he had over 90 tackles this year, which I mean,
sneaky
which
too. They don't talk about it that much.
Yeah, I mean, and he had 10 in the he had 10 in the AFC Championship game, obviously, but like, and he had a big game in the Super Bowl, clearly, but like 93, I think it was like 93 tackles they showed on ESPN today, and I was like, man, he's just a guy that you just didn't going into the year. Everyone had been so low on him because he had been trying to fill the Hightower role. And look, I mean, and Spags and I talked about it. I have talked about it on the show multiple times. Like, he is so much better when Hightower is on the field and he gets to play his role. And he does a lot of different things, but when Hightower's there, he's able to kind of freelance and do different things, and he can use that intelligence, like you said, Taylor, to kind of to his advantage and to make plays and whatnot. But when he's in that Hightower role, he may not be as great. So people were super low on him coming into the season. And it's one of those things, man, where it's just now he gets to kind of be on this tour, and Felger Maz was saying the other day, now they like attacked him for no reason, like personally, like he's terrible and he's stupid, and it was like ridiculous. But they even said, they're like, all right, we got to book him on the show because he's got to come in and gloat and shove it in our faces, and like, we got to take.
He's a cool personality that he'll do that in a joking way, like you saw him first.
Yeah.
Today.
Oh, that was beautiful.
He interacts with us. He quoted a tweet from Pat's Pulpit, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's cool. He knows what's going on. He's plugged into the situation. You know what's crazy about him too is that his snap count has gone from the last year they wanted him to take over that middle linebacker, that Mike role, and he ended up playing almost 67% of the snaps. He missed 3 games, and obviously the last 2 games of the regular season, he played like 20% of the snaps, just getting ready for the playoffs. This year he played like 91% of the snaps this year. So like he was every down. We can't take this guy off the field. The only 2 guys that play more snaps than him were Devin McCourty and Stephon Gilmore this year on defense. Like that shows you right there. Like if you're playing more snaps than Pat Chung, like you are a cornerstone of the defense.
For sure. Yeah. So one guy I wanted to talk about, and he's not on the Patriots defense. He was on the Patriots last year, but is Brandon Cooks. And it kind of relates to, the Patriots defense. And when I looked at the stats after the game, I couldn't believe it. I mean, he had 8 catches for like 120. I couldn't believe the numbers at the end of the game. But for the vast majority of that game, he was invisible. He dropped a touchdown pass. He dropped really 2. I mean, the first one's not on him. I think the McCourty one where Jason McCourty, where he broke it up, I thought wasn't on him. The drop at the goal line. And I know he's going to get hit. I know it's into tight coverage, but you have to make that catch. And to me, that was the problem I had with Cooks when he was here. He's just soft. He's not that big play receiver that can make the catch in traffic as he's getting hit, and it just – so to me, he wasn't worth it. I mean, he got paid, $14 million a year by the Rams, and I just was like, there's no chance that I wanted him to get that. What did you see from his performance? Obviously, stats-wise – it looked pretty good at the end of the day, but I wasn't impressed the whole game.
Well, in terms of the receptions, I think at least 3 or 4 of his catches were in situations where the Patriots were basically just defending deep, and they tried to get the ball in his hands and see if he could just turn to make a play. But like you said, I think the Super Bowl showed you exactly why Belichick didn't want to pay him a lot of money. And I hate to say anything bad about Cooks because he seems like an awesome dude. Everyone says it. Even Devin said it after the game. He said, you're an awesome person. But, I mean, I think both of those plays, if you're getting paid as a top 10 receiver, you got to catch those. Both of the balls were in his hands. It's not like I would understand if, on the play that Jason made, if he'd gotten his hand in, it was right there. But Cooks had his hands on the ball, and then McCourty hit his arm and he dropped it. And then and also the Stephon Gilmore one was kind of tough because he had one hand. But, I mean, you're getting paid like guys who make those plays all the time. And it's a Super Bowl, man. You got to do that. Like Mike Irvin was bugging out on some show because he was like on Inside the NFL saying, you got to catch that. And he's absolutely right.
And I don't know if you guys touched upon it while I stepped away for a second, but one thing with Cooks too, when he was here, man, and Pat, you can attest for it too. he, he had 1,000 yards and all this stuff, but he just couldn't get separation. He didn't fight for one-on-one balls. Like he shouldn't be getting the money. The Patriots never give him that money. Like he shouldn't be getting the money he's getting because he doesn't gain separation. He's not a Antonio Brown. Like he's getting paid like that. You know what I'm saying? Like he obviously had 1,000 yards in our system, but like a lot of that was runs after the catch.
Yeah. And with guys with his speed, the elite guys, you tend to see they're really twitchy. They're quick. They got good knee hip bend, and they kind of burst out of their routes. One thing you don't see from Cooks is a lot of that like flexibility. He looks kind of stiff. He's a bulkier guy, but he's also not really strong enough to consistently. I mean, he'll win some 50-50 balls. I don't want to give him too much crap on that, but it's not in the vein that you see from, again, guys who are getting paid as much as he does. He just doesn't have that kind of body type where he can be as flexible as he would need to be to play for the Patriots. So, again, that's just another reason that it makes sense that he wasn't around, and I think he fits well in their scheme. He has the speed to win on those crossing routes and really stretch a defense vertically the way McVay likes, but that's more of a bonus for the Patriots. That's not something they really are willing to shell out cash for.
Right. I mean, he felt like to me, and clearly he was better than this player, but he felt like a Brandon Lloyd to me when he was here, only because, I know, but he was better than Brandon Lloyd. But I just felt like, to me, he's running comeback routes, catching and dropping to the ground. And I'm like, well, okay, you want to run a comeback route and catch and drop to the ground. Like, I can get Chris Hogan to do that. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's not, we know how you guys feel about Chris Hogan. So to me, it's like, he's just going to run, if he's going to run comeback routes, like, what are we doing? And every now, 3 times a game he'll go deep and maybe he'll catch one of them a game. Like, that's, we don't need that here.
Or he'll draw a DPI, right? Like the DPIs were the big thing last year, like bringing all that additional yardage in, because that is what you get with Brandon Cooks. You pay for speed, right? You're just paying for something that you can't find anywhere else. A guy he's probably a top 10 guy in the league with speed wise, right? I mean, straight line speed, the guy is a burner.
Ball tracking is excellent too.
Right. And defensive coordinators get scared to death about that. And corners, the way they play him, the reason he gets what he gets is because of that speed and the respect they have for it. And, you'll get those DPIs, but you're right. It's not a nuanced deal. It's not, there's no Keenan Allen in his game. You know what I mean? There's no shake. There's no superior sideline skills, any of that stuff. But, you do have to respect the speed, but yeah, you can't pay $14 million a year for it.
Yeah. And Phil Dorsett did a lot of the things that, like you were saying, comebacks. I mean, that's and we were saying Dorsett's thing is he definitely has the speed, but he's small and he's not very strong. So if you play him physical, it's tough for him to get off the line. And he also doesn't have that Cooks gear where he can just fly by guys, especially if he's got contact. But he has enough speed that defenses still have to respect it. You see him get a lot of the deep attention, and it's enough that he can instill enough fear in a cornerback that he wins on those hitches, on those curls, on those comeback routes. So, I mean, he fills that role even if you aren't getting the bombs that we saw to Cooks last year.
Right. So before we leave the defense, one guy I wanted to talk about, and Brian, you and I have had some Twitter wars about this guy, is Trey Flowers. And I just think for the Patriots, when you look at the offseason, the number one priority needs to be to re-sign Trey Flowers. And I know how you feel about it. And to me, I just think that they haven't re-signed him yet, but they did that with Hightower and they did that with McCourty. And they said, go out and see what you can get and then come back and let's see what we can do. And I think that, Flowers is going to kind of do that same thing. I think, and I don't know, but I think they could go so far as to throw a tag on him if they really, really want him and feel like they don't want anyone else to touch him. But I don't know. What do you, Brian, I'll let you talk first because I know we've kind of gone back and forth.
So I've never had a take, or it's not even a take. I've never wanted to be wrong so bad in my life, right? I'm head over heels for Trey Flowers and have been forever. All of us have, because we know how good he is. We know how much, especially this year, he was absolutely dominant this year. But the fact of the matter is the Patriots just don't have the resources to tag anybody, and whether it be Trent Brown or Trey Flowers. Right now, they're sitting around $18 million in cap. Yes, there's going to be a lot of different ways that they can, manufacture cap, moving forward. But if they tag anybody, it's going to create a serious hampering of what they want to do. You're not going to be able to bring anybody else back if you do that. You got to be under the cap by 4 p.m. on the first day of the league year. The Patriots, right now, I think the cap is going to be somewhere around 100 or 17.3 or 17.5 million for a defensive end. And if they were going to bring him back at less than market value or right around market value, that's where I say that they would have already had the deal done. Neil Cornrich is his agent. He's notorious. This guy is a hard ass, man. This guy is Bill Belichick's agent. This guy has made his bones throughout the years representing college coaches. Anytime you hear of a bad college coach getting a huge buyout after getting fired, it's probably a Neil Cornrich client. And he sets precedent and he gets his guys paper. Like, this guy does not mess around. And, and there's, with all the teams out there that have to spend money that are going to be looking for a versatile guy to help their defensive front seven out, there's no way he's going to get less than $17 million a year, which is, we've talked about it, which is Olivier Vernon money 2 years ago was $17 million a year. Like, if you extrapolate that to this year's cap, Olivier Vernon money is around $20 million a year. So I'm saying that he's not even as good as Olivier Vernon, which we all think he is. Right. So it's like 17 is the minimum, and I just don't see. They love him, but there's too much depth behind them. They've literally built, and they're ready for this. They're ready to move on. That's why they have Rivers, Wise. They've got another year of Adrian Claiborne. They've got Davis. They love Ufamba Kamalu, and then they've got 12 draft picks. I want to be wrong so bad, Pat. I want to be wrong so bad, man. I want give him all the money, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, Tanner.
I was going to say, me, I'm not really the big numbers guy. I usually default to Brian for that. But in terms of what his value is to the defense, I feel like him and Chandler Jones are the easiest comparisons because they're the guys who are going to command a lot of money. It seemed like they were good guys for the Patriots, and then they in Chandler Jones' case, he wound up leaving. But I feel like Chandler Jones, we always saw late in the season, especially when games really mattered, there were times where he would completely disappear. But Trey Flowers is the lifeblood of this defensive line, all the things he does in terms of getting attention so guys can win on twists, which, to be fair, I think they've got part of that in Adam Butler. That was something that he really did well in the Super Bowl, was he got a lot of attention and had guys double teaming him, which opened up room for guys like Van Noy, for Hightower, guys like that. So I'm not saying that if we lose Flowers, it's the defense is going to collapse. They've got, like Brian said, they've got a lot of depth, and Belichick's creative. He's going to find a way. He's probably already planning for what's going to happen if Flowers leaves. But, man, I'm pretty much all on the same page. I really hate to see him go. He's a fantastic player.
Yeah. No, it's true, and I think it's definitely, it would be sad to see him go because he is dominant, and it's one of those guys, and I don't know if he's Richard Seymour, but to me he's close, man. He plays the run so well. He wins one-on-one matchups consistently in the pass rush, and it's just he's one of those guys where you're like, man, like could be the anchor of your defense, and like you say, they may have to let him walk because they don't want to, or they can't afford to pay him.
What's funny too is I was just talking to
Pat,
Evan
he's the
Lazar.
most consistent. He's so consistent. He's just like a consistent player. Lives in your backfield, and like we said, if the Pats aren't willing to pay him, some team is drooling and waiting and willing to pay whatever he wants.
I was talking a little bit to Evan Lazar about it, and he was just like, well, it's going to be funny because I was telling him that, I'm expecting Trey, I'm not even considering Trey Flowers and Trent Brown to be in the plans. Like I made my priorities list this offseason, and they're not even on the list because in my opinion, they're kind of just, that would be icing on the cake. Right. But he's like, he brought up a good point. He's like, it's just too bad that, they could, that the Patriots, a team could lose, and he brought up all the guys that the Patriots lost last offseason. And, he's like, yeah, if you lose your starting running back and you lose your starting left tackle and all these other guys, and you're starting your second corner, man, how do you possibly win a title after all that? And here we are, right? So like, you lose. Oh, man, it's just wild. Like this is what Bill does. This is the process.
And kind of like transition into another thought, like, it's an interesting debate. Is this the most impressive run? I mean, it's hard to, we don't really remember the things we might remember now. Obviously this one's fresh, but like 01 to now, like this might be the most impressive one because everyone counted them out.
Circumstantially, I think it kind of is. I'm partial to 2014 because it was just we saw a long stretch of them just dominate some really good teams. But I feel like this year we didn't know what they were going to. They didn't know what they were going to be. Gronk acknowledged it after the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah,
we finally found our identity. It took them until the second to last week of the season to really, get comfortable and find what they did well. And the defense really just started to lock it up. I think the run defense was really their big problem, and that was fixed once they kind of decided to go more game play and focus in. Malcolm Brown and Shelton and all those guys started to pick it up. But in terms of how quickly they got together and just became a completely different team in the last 6-7 weeks, I would say it's definitely at least up there, if not the most impressive.
I think a little bit of it was, I think because of the Miami game and how that went down, how it was, yes, they lost on the last second play. And yes, the game was ugly, right? They got gashed. Brandon Bolden looked like Adrian Peterson in his prime. And it just didn't look good. But the 2 weeks prior to that, they came out of the bye week and they dominated the Jets on the road by 2 touchdowns, both running backs getting career highs in rushing yards. Then they hosted the Vikings, who weren't quite in their complete tailspin yet. The front seven is still the top 3 front seven in the league, probably. And they just took them to task. Then they go on the road. They have the Miami performance. And then they have, and me and Pat have gone back and forth on Twitter about this performance in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was still a good team, and they held them to 17 points on the road, and we started to see the defense gel a little bit, right?
Right.
And so it's easy to think kind of like that the run started after those 2 losses, but really those 2 losses are pretty damn good games when you factor in the previous 2 weeks before them too. So I think this was really I think we were kind of overlooking how this is a tale of 2 seasons, tale of 2 halves, as opposed to the very last second. I feel like it was more of a first half kind of, and the second half is where they kind of took off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the thing with the Pittsburgh game about me is that, yes, the defense played well in that game. The offense was terrible. They were just awful. They couldn't block anybody. There were like 9,000 offsides penalties, holding penalties everywhere. It was brutal.
Yeah,
and all those
zone penalties.
Oh. Yeah, and it was just it was one of those things where you're looking at the offense, and I'm like, what is going on with this offense where they couldn't get anything going? I mean, shoot, like one of their touchdowns was, I mean, I could have thrown that touchdown pass to Chris Hogan. Like there was literally nobody in the screen with him when he caught it. Like they zoomed out, and it was just him on the entire side of the field. So it's like one of those things where that's clearly just a blown coverage. So. Yeah, okay, fine. They scored a touchdown on that play, but like that has nothing to do with anything. And and to me, I was really nervous. And then that week they lose Gordon, and I'm like, oh no, like the defense, the offense is screwed. Like, yeah, the defense is starting to play fine, and they're doing, but like I'm like the offense, we're screwed. The offensive line can't block anybody. Marcus Cannon is like a revolving door on the right side. It was brutal. And then all of a sudden nobody could. I mean, they faced the 3 best, pass rushing attacks in the league and shut them all down, in the playoffs. And it was just, it was unbelievable.
And this was their toughest route in terms of DVOA and right? Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know exactly what goes into that, but I mean, when you're in company with like 1, 2, and 4 in the league, like that's pretty good.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's the toughest slate any team's ever had, as far as DVOA, and DVOA being, But the funny thing is, over the course of the Patriots dynasty, no team, the Patriots are far and away the best combined DVOA team. When you combine all of the years of every team playing and all of the team's DVOA years combined cumulatively, the Patriots are far and away the best. But yeah, like when you look at individual years, it is kind of funny to see how it breaks out, because the Patriots defense is never up there because they let up too many yards. They let up too many expected points and all these other things. But I mean, gosh, it's this is the recipe, right?
This was also a different defense philosophically than what we saw or what we usually see from Belichick, because everyone says the bend but don't break. I saw someone actually tweeted that to me, and I said, that's not what it is. Like philosophically, yes, bend but don't break is, you're just not going to let them throw it over the top, and you'll make them drive the length of the field and then stop them in the red zone. But they were good enough in man coverage that they really didn't need to do that. The pass rush, that was when the games started to really get working. Landon Roberts started playing a lot better. Like it wasn't just they were giving up long drives that we used to see like in 2011. When they didn't really give up a lot of points, but the drives lasted forever. Like they were legitimately getting teams off the field. Like against KC, I didn't understand how some people I really respect in the football community were saying, yeah, well, their defense still isn't that good. I mean, you don't shut KC out for an entire half of football.
Dominate. Like, not even shut them
lucky.
out, dominate them. They didn't even – did they get the ball past midfield? Like, seriously.
So. And then all the big plays in the second half, a lot of them were just Mahomes. Like the throw to Sammy Watkins and Gilmore.
Insane.
That was insane.
Insane.
3-4 quarterbacks that can make that throw.
Right.
So, yeah, that was wild to me going into the game that people thought that McVay was going to have a day. I was like, I'm not going to lie. I'm not really that scared of their offense.
I wasn't either, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. But
I thought with a healthy Todd Gurley, I'm still shocked that they did not get the ball to him in space.
I said that to you, Pat, last episode.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense.
That's where my worry was Todd Gurley, how healthy he's going to be, and if he got 30 touches, I felt like, Patriots would be maybe in a little bit of trouble. But
if you get the 12 personnel package that they were using a lot more in the second half of the season with Higbee and Everett out there, then you force the Patriots to go base. Right. And then you've got Kyle Van Noy all of a sudden has to cover, or Dante Hightower, or John Simon, or somebody is going to have to cover Todd Gurley in space. Right. And like, why? I mean, if us four guys are sitting around talking about this, how the Rams didn't sit there and go, well, shit, we got to do this.
Yeah.
It's what McDaniels does, and it blows my mind. It's what they do. If you're going to come out and you're going to defend the run, they'll spread you out, and they're just going to throw it on you. And it's not even excusable because McDaniels said he drew it up in the dirt. It was a formation. I saw some of the stat that said it was only 11 times all year that a team went 2 tight ends, 2 backs, and then spread out. Like he just drew it up on the sideline.
Yeah.
So for McVay, of all people, not to find some way to exploit the fact that the Patriots had 4 defensive backs, which they hardly did all season, and as much beef as they did and not get Gurley the ball, I didn't understand that.
I mean, it's lunacy. And you're right, Taylor, to your point. Like the Patriots hadn't run that specific formation all year long. They had never gone
what they had done
tight ends and in what's it called, in shotgun with no backs in the backfield. Right. And it was just and then they ran the same play 3 times in a row. And
the funny thing is about it is what they did was where they took that 22 personnel package. I was going back through it and I was looking because I have a spreadsheet where I've got every play with every personnel package and every guy. And I went and I filtered it and it came up 16 times. They had Burkhead, Gronk, Allen, and Julian Edelman on the field at the same time with Devlin. And with that 22 personnel. And I went back to Game Pass and I just checked out these times, and every single one of them was a tight, traditional, almost a goal line looking formation. A couple of them were those the formations in Kansas City where they had Rex kind of motion out of the backfield. Yeah, a couple of them were those, but it was still everything was under center, and they only did it. They ran it a couple times against Buffalo in Week 17, and a couple of times against Kansas City. And then all of a sudden, it's the game-winning touchdown drive. They're breaking it apart for the first time all year. It's insane. Like, and James Devlin is getting covered by a former All-Pro corner. like this. It's beautiful. It's absolutely it's beautiful stuff. It's what more can you say?
Yeah,
and McVay gets a lot of credit for the fact that his scheme. When you watch a lot of the route combinations that he uses, you can tell that he knows exactly what principles of defense uses, and he just picks it apart. Like with the stack formations, a lot of the time they'll have receivers run like the Patriots have that tight split where they'll run double outs, and it's just easy because it's hard for you to press the guy who's off the ball, and it's just a quick 5-yard gain. McVay will run that, but a lot of the time it's a whip route, so he gets wide open because the defender's just going to push downfield, and then he's in bad position. So McVay is excellent at, finding how he can exploit you from different personnel packages, from all the players you have. And I mean, again, beating a dead horse, but he wasn't McVay in that game, and it was really mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. That's the difference in the game, I think. So, all right, let's transition away from the defense, and I do want to talk about the offense again. And the offense, scored 13 points, but it felt like the first half of the Atlanta game to me, and not as bad, but like just the fact that they were just running plays nonstop. They had the ball the entire game, and it was like they were just killing the clock, but they weren't scoring. It was like they were doing everything but actually putting the ball in the end zone and kicking field goals and everything else. And it was like you knew at a certain point that they were going to just gas the Rams out, and they score in the last 2 possessions of the game and win the game. Well, I mean, technically down the ball to end the game, but essentially the last two possessions of the game, and ended it offensively. We talked a little bit about the formation and stuff, but what did you see from them at the beginning of the game, and and things that they changed as the game progressed?
Yeah, well, they when looking at the personnel percentages, there was no game all year. The closest they came to running this many plays with heavy personnel, whether it be 22 or 22 with like we talked about, or traditional 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 and 1 back, two receivers, or your standard 2 receivers in Devlin and Gronk. Was week 1 against Houston. They ran 62% of plays out of heavy personnel against the Rams, which if you're going to go up against this interior defensive tackle trio, probably the best in the business, right? With Donald and Sue and Brockers. That's a ballsy way to go about it, right? To take it right to him and take him to task like that. But yeah, I mean, it's what we saw since the bye week. It's what they came out and what they were determined to do the whole way, and they stuck to it. Now, I think a lot of it is a testament to how good this is just how good this defense was. When you go into you leave that many points on the board as an offense, and you give them that many opportunities. You turn the ball over on 4th and 1 and give them good field position. It's just and again, the Patriots special teams was excellent at pinning them deep and whatnot. But it's just a testament to how crazy of a performance this defense was, because all year long, what are we talking about when they're leaving points on the board and they're bad in the red zone and bad in their opponent's territory, right? Where we're like, this is a recipe for disaster. But yeah, they pulled this one out. It's insane.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, honestly, at the beginning of the game was Brady just not being settled. But to start the game, actually, the pick to nickel Roby-Coleman, I remember, it kind of threw off the momentum a little bit. That was actually a better play from him and not as bad of a play from Brady that I realized when I went back, because Roby-Coleman saw that Dwayne Allen was going vertical, and obviously we all know that Allen's not going to catch any seam passes. So he just passed him off and immediately went to the flat, and I'm pretty sure it was a match coverage in cover 3. So Roby-Coleman was supposed to be going vertical, but he went right there. Brady had his eyes in the middle of the field, I think, to make sure that no one was going to jump the hitch. And as soon as he let it go, I think that's why it came out funny, because I saw Roby-Coleman coming down on it, and it was just like, oh, crap. And then obviously it led to the pick because it was too late for him to let it go. But besides that, it was a lot of small mistakes. It was Brady letting the ball out too soon on 3rd down when he didn't have enough time to kind of look through the field because of, obviously Donald and Sue. The catch, Edelman, I thought was interfered with on that pass against, I think it was Marcus Peters on the out route. That was, I thought, a bad call. But it was just a lot of small mistakes that ended up just getting them off the field, even though, they had their way a lot of the time with the Rams defense. It was just execution. But, like Brady's been doing all postseason and really all season, he put it together at the last minute when he had to.
Yeah. And so I think Sony, obviously you get Edelman gets the MVP because he has, he has the catches, and it's funny. So he had 1 carry, but it was on a wide receiver screen. So it felt like a reception to me, even though it didn't count as a reception. It felt like a reception to me. But Sony Michel, at the end of the game, Burkhead breaks off that, 26-yard run or something like that. If Michel's in the game when Burkhead is in the game there, and he takes that carry and he ends up with like 115 and a touchdown, I think he probably ends up the MVP of the game. And I thought he ran well. I've loved what he's done so far this year.
He's so good, man. He's going to be so good. I was saying that the whole game. I was like, this kid is going to be a stud.
He's smart too. The fact that he can run in so many – he can run gap, he can run zone. And he doesn't look uncomfortable. He finds cutback lanes. He improvises when he has to, or as he says, he follows his rules, because the Patriots running backs hate saying if they have vision or anything. But, he's incredibly impressive as a rookie, and you see why they went so high on him, because he must have blown them away when they met with him personally, especially, when you see him in interviews. He seems like he's well-spoken. He's very team first, doesn't like to get the attention on himself. Yeah. He said he wishes that people said we scored the game when he touched down, because the hole was wide open. Devlin and Trent Brown blew it wide open. So, Sony has been fantastic, man. I can't wait to see how he develops.
And you're right. Catch the ball. You can't talk about Sony Michel without talking about this interior offensive line trio. Cannon had an underrated year, and then obviously we know about Trent Brown and how what a nice addition he's been. But we're talking about the best interior offensive line trio in football, probably. and definitely the one with the most cohesion. I think they've missed 4 or 5 games over the last 3 seasons where all 3 of them weren't on the field at the same time. With Tooney and Andrews and Mason. Tooney's next up for the contract. I think that's like on my priorities list. It's not as high. It's not as high.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not as high this year just because it would be one of those year early type of deals. But I think if there's a player on the roster right now who's the type of guy who would want to sign one early and get the deal going, it would be Joe Tooney. I think they pay him pretty well, like $36 million, probably somewhere around there. They would get him close to Shaq's money.
Right.
Talk about a guy who's earned it, right? Like 99.7% of snaps, like going one-on-one with Aaron Donald on that final touchdown drive when they were in 22 personnel. He's got one-on-one blocks with Aaron Donald.
Twice.
I was gonna say Donald said he had one-on-ones twice.
I mean, just insane stuff, man. And then David Andrews, obviously, just give him, he's signed through 2020, but just give him $100 million for looking that good in the parade.
Yep.
That was.
And then you mentioned the continuity on the offensive line. You got to throw Cannon in there too. I know he misses a lot of games because of Waddle, who's also been there for a while. But when I was researching for the game and I look back at the Rams game in 2016, I was like, oh my God, this is everyone except Nate Solder. It's all the same guys. And you can see it when they pass guys off with the stunts. That's why it's so hard. Like, you can pay out the wazoo for, a really good offensive line. But Belichick did it the hard way. He drafted his guys. He developed them. Tooney and Shaq Mason have both, and David Andrews, all those guys have gotten significantly better every year. Cannon took a while, but, ever since 2016, he's been fantastic. And these guys have been together for so long. They have a bond. They can communicate without, verbally communicating. They know each other's body language. I mean, it's fun to watch, and maybe next year we're gonna have another shakeup probably at left tackle because Trent Brown. I don't see how he sticks around. But then they got Isaiah Wynn for another 3-4 years. So that's one of the most exciting things about this offense and why they're going to be good for a while.
And if Dante Scarnecchia says you're a left tackle, you're a left tackle. So he's not kicking the guard. Like
when he tells you to do anything, you do it.
Right. Exactly. Like if Dante says he's a left tackle, that's where they drafted him at. And it's funny. This ties into the Trey Flowers conversation a little bit because these are the kind of guys when Trey leaves, if he leaves, they're going to get a 3rd round comp pick in 2020. If Trent Brown leaves, they're going to probably get another 3rd round comp pick in 2020. And if you look at this offensive line this year, you've got a 7th round pick who they acquired for a pick swap at left tackle. They've got a guy they acquired for trading Chandler Jones at left guard. They got an undrafted center. Undrafted free agent at center. They've got a 4th round pick at right guard, and they've got a 5th round pick at right tackle. These are the kind of picks that, like, when you have to move on from these premier players, Bill acquires this late round draft capital. I mean, they've got 12 picks this year. And and we know that they're going to flip those for some pro personnel, like they like to do. So, I mean, that's going to be another thing I'm going to be looking at, in the next couple months is like who is available for some late capital to trade. Cause this is what Bill's been doing, trade for pro personnel, grab 1 or 2 guys you like in the draft and then keep moving back and stockpile. And this is how it works, man. It's wild.
And then for all the crap that Bill gets for, not being a great drafter. And he's got, the Jordan Richards, he's got the Tavon Wilsons. But a lot of this roster and the guys that are contributing so much are guys that he drafted, guys that he brought in, developed, had them like their little niche roles when they first got there. A lot of them, even Hightower, fans and, the media weren't really very high on them early, thought they were busts. And then you see 2 years later, they're cogs in the offense or the defense. So, I mean, I'm excited to see what they do with the draft this year because he's had some gems and undrafted, like guys like J.C. Jackson, like you said, David Andrews.
Right. Like it's wild. I mean, you can have everybody rants and raves about the Chris Ballards and the Rick Spielmans and the Howie Rosemans and these other GMs around the league, Ryan Pace, these are good GMs, sure. But man, when you do it when you do it with the longevity and you do it this long and you do it at such a you're consistently ahead of the curve and you're not constantly chasing after the salary cap and having to kick the can down the road on a bunch of guys just to keep a core of guys together and then building around a rookie contract. I mean, it's insane. What Bill Belichick's never going to win GM of the year, but we all know we know the deal, right?
Yep. Well, and it's not just that. I mean, you look at what he did. He picked up an extra 2nd rounder in the draft, like with draft day trades. He picked up an extra 3rd rounder with draft day trades. And then he picks up 2 third-round compensation picks for losing big money guys, and they still win the Super Bowl after losing those big money guys. And so it's one of those things where you look at it now and you're like, oh my God, look at all these picks that he's acquired. And he's been doing it his entire career. I mean, for God's sakes, he traded Deion Branch for Randy Moss and Gerard Mayo. Like, this is what he does. He just he turns these guys, he turned, what was it? He turned a second-round pick into Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski. Like, this is what he does. Like, he does this every single year. He does it all the time.
And people, the casual fan doesn't know that. So when they see this, like, oh my God, they traded Branch, or like, for instance, with Flowers, what they could eventually turn into him with a comp pick, like, the casual fan doesn't realize that. But like, if we really go back and look at his past deals, like, you'd be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. They get Trent Brown this year on a pick swap. They get Kyle Van Noy for a sixth round, 7th round pick swap.
Jason McCourty.
Jason McCourty. Like, I mean, it's just Danny Shelton, people.
John Simon, we can't forget him.
John Simon, bring him in week 5 when 5th round draft pick Juwan Bentley, who blows up and goes into the starting lineup and becomes their 3-down linebacker, goes out on IR. They bring in John Simon. I mean, it's just they've got their methods, they've got their principles, and nobody. I was reading Mike Lombardi's book on the Gridiron Genius about his time with the organization and how in depth they are and the portfolios they have on every piece of coaching and player personnel in the professional ranks. Like, they've got if they need a safety for the practice squad, if they feel they want somebody for us, for a slot guy for a practice squad spot, they've got a file cabinet full of guys, and that they go to. I mean, they have a whole staff devoted to this stuff that knows their entire principles, and it goes all the way up to Nick Caserio and everything. It's insane. It's insane to see how they go about their business, and there's always an answer for every problem that comes up.
And another pickup they made midseason that really didn't get talked about, and we didn't see the fruits, kind of come from it this year. But Obi Melifonwu, he's a freak athlete. He's a smart guy. He seems like a hard worker. He's someone that could absolutely have a role, next year if they need a little bit more help at defensive back, if McCourty retires or, whatever is going on with Chung, anything like that. I mean, they got a freaky athlete who was squandered with the Raiders. So, I mean, you can't really hold that against him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the amount of guys they picked up this year that really were afterthoughts that could – either had a big role this year even in a couple games or that could going forward is amazing and something that I don't think we talked about enough. Belichick killed it this year.
That's a good point.
Nick Caserio.
Yeah, it's a good point. So there is one more guy I want to talk. So I want to hit on this guy, and I also want to hit on the that Rams decision at the end of the game. But another 6th round pick, steal in the draft. Matter of fact, 199 to be honest with you, is Tom Brady, and Brady just He did what he does again. And my favorite stat of all time is he now has 10 fourth quarter or overtime drives in the Super Bowl to either take the lead or tie the game. 10. Second on the 9. Right. So that's the thing. So he has more drives than he's even played in games. And so the second on the list is Eli Manning with 3. So nobody else in the history of the NFL has come anywhere near what he's been able to do, and he's done it consistently over and over and over again. And, of course, the fourth quarter rolls around. It's a tie game. He drives them down, throws 2 gorgeous passes to Gronk, and, they end up winning the game and scoring a touchdown on that drive. And you look around and you just know when it comes down to the fourth quarter, if it's close, you're going to win the game. And that's why last year was such a surprise, obviously, but he just seems to do it every single time. But this game, what did you think about his play, in this game, obviously outside of that one drive where he went 4 for 67 yards on that touchdown drive? What did you think about his performance, Super Bowl Sunday?
Well, I know it's easy to say that, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's supposed to be the GOAT, and he struggled in the Super Bowl, the biggest game of the season. It took him until the fourth quarter to really get into his rhythm. But that's pretty disrespectful to Wade Phillips, who is one of the best defensive minds in football on his own. I mean, the scheme he came up with is fantastic. He made man look like zone. He forced Brady to hold the ball longer than he wanted to because he wasn't getting the information he needed quickly enough. But, the problem with Brady is, like you said, you can't keep him in the game late. That's why, when the fourth quarter rolled around, you're like, as long as LA doesn't just take over at the end or something like that, Brady's got a shot, because once he figures out what you're doing and, it's over the course of 3 quarters, you can't pull out that many new things. So that's why, they went to the sideline and fixed it up in terms of the 22 personnel and found a way to finally beat Wade's defense. But, he showed up when he needed to. Once, he had the answers to the test, he cashed it and he got another Super Bowl ring out of it. So it wasn't his best Super Bowl performance. It's not his first where he maybe had a shaky start to it, but he did what he had to do. He was Brady when he needed to be Brady. And I think really, you can pick it apart as much as you want, but he's got his 6th ring, and I think he earned it.
Yeah. My favorite part of Twitter is picking apart all of Tom Brady's Super Bowls to show how not good he is. Look at how my favorite is like the still frame of like somebody being wide open and being like, oh, this pass was super tough to make. Like, okay, like every pass has to be some extremely tight window, 50-yard, like crazy throw on the run with
behind
a guy on the leg. Right, exactly. For it to be good. I didn't think Tom was good. Like the first half was probably the worst first half Tom played in a while. He wasn't good, and not just because of the pressure, not, this and that. He was missing throws. Wade Phillips was nasty, right? With like what you said, Taylor, with the disguise and the coverages. When you're tricking Tom Brady, like that's gross. They were doing a lot of, like you said, that cover 3, that Nick Saban, Bill Belichick pattern match type of stuff. It's that old YouTube clip, but man, it's what else can you say about it? Like, we don't have a good way to quantify QB wins yet. So, like, the anti-QB wins crowd will always be, it's a team sport. It's a team sport. Football is a team sport, like NASCAR is a team sport. Okay, like the drivers cannot win the race without a pit crew. We know that. Like no driver can. But every driver is the one getting the milk sprayed on his face at the end, or doing the stupid crap that NASCAR guys do. They're the ones who go down in history as the ones who win the championships. There's not a pit crew. There's not a picture of the pit crew, on the list of all-time Daytona 500 winners. Now that is the most I've ever talked about NASCAR in my life.
I was gonna say, way too much about it, but
like that is that and like Ricky Bobby with the what do I do with my hands? That's like all my NASCAR stuff. But like that's what this is, and like you're right. That stat is insane because as every quarterback grows up, they think, what is the dream? The dream is to have that scenario happen once in your life. If I can just get there one time, game tied 4th quarter in the Super Bowl.
That's insane.
And to have it happen 10 times and in 9 Super Bowls and to win 6 of them, we've got to figure we need MIT to like come up with a metric that we can show how this works. Like we need this figured out so the analytics community will shut up about it.
And it's like, you can look at it and be like, those 3 that he lost, like, some of those drives came, twice in one game, but both those Super Bowls, like he was put in a position to win. Obviously, they're a strip sack away from going 3 in a row, to be honest. Like if we're being honest, it's Tom Brady. And going back to this week's game, like he was great when they needed him to be. That's all you can ask. He got to that point and he made a big time throw. That was one of the best throws he's made in his career. That was I was speechless. Pat, I texted you right after. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. That was unreal.
I'm getting like heart palpitations thinking about Gronk, man, and like I'm so happy for Gronk after all the year he had, and everything. And when we're talking about his career, he's the best tight end in the history of the game, and we're talking about a guy who's trying. There's no real statement performance for him in his career. Like with Tom Brady, if you had one video clip to play, it's Tom with his hands on his head after that first Super Bowl, like, oh my God, this iconic moment. For me, it's him, it's Gronk. Gronk finally got one or 2 of those now. He got the catch over Eric Berry in the AFC Championship game to bring him down to the 4-yard line. I'll never forget that. And then the exact same thing happens in the Super Bowl. It brings him down to the 2 to score the go-ahead touchdown. I mean, 2 iconic performances and 2 iconic plays for him. I feel so awesome for the guy.
I think we're underrating Yosoi Fiesta just a little bit. That was pretty legendary. But also, I mean, we're talking about we're talking about clutch guys, and obviously Brady is the first person you think of with clutch performances with that stat. But Gronk, when's the last time that you can remember where Brady went to Gronk late in the game and he didn't come through?
Yeah,
I was thinking about it. He does it every single time.
It's a good point, man, and that's it's one of those. I think it's a different discussion for a different day about Edelman with the Hall of Fame and everything. But Edelman's the same way, where Brady calls Edelman's number and he's there and he makes the play and that's what he does, and so. We'll see. I think we can push that until we could talk about that for another hour. So let's not do that right now. But but it's interesting. But you're right. Like those guys come through in the clutch and they make the plays and they need to be made. And Gronk, it's interesting because in 2014, his performance in 2014 really kind of gets lost. But he had a phenomenal game against the Seahawks. And obviously, everything gets lost in that game because it's just the Malcolm play. Like that's what everyone remembers about that game. And so, I think. This time, like you said, Brian, that catch, to get them down there and the catch against Berry, those are going to be remembered because that's what set up, game-winning plays as opposed to, well, obviously the other one was a game-winning, but you understand what I'm saying here. But, but they were losing at the time, and so that kind of put them in position to take the lead, and obviously the Chiefs ended up, whatever, they tied the game and everything else. But that performance against the Seahawks doesn't get remembered because it's only the Malcolm play. Now those particular plays will be remembered as plays that help the Patriots win, another Super Bowl, and it's
directly tied to it. It's funny. He caught 2 touchdowns against Ron Darby in the Super Bowl last year.
Right.
It's like the guy has been a killer. Just an absolute killer. But to have the iconic moment, that's what it's about. The still frame. There's a beautiful picture. I forget the photographer's name, from one of the Globe's photographers of him just mossing Eric Berry, and it's just unbelievable. And that's what I'll remember. I hope he comes back this year. I still think there's plenty for him to accomplish, but. Yeah, man, I'm excited for him.
Yeah.
And even 2014 in that Super Bowl, he caught the touchdown where he just undressed Cam Chancellor on the double move. And that was obviously overshadowed by Chris Matthews because Russell Wilson just took him down as quickly as he did.
Didn't he own KJ Wright too?
Yeah. Who did he have the bump and run on? Was that Bobby Wagner?
I think it was Wright.
Was it right? That bump and run was that was a dime too, and an unbelievable play.
Oh, actually, no, you're right. That was KJ Wright. You're absolutely right. But it was both of those guys. I mean,
right at the end of the first half.
Hard.
Yep. So interesting. It was great, and great performances by Gronk and by Brady again in the fourth quarter. So there's one thing I want to talk about. We're having so much fun with the interview. We're gonna do our up high, down low, too slow with you guys. But before we get into that, there's one thing that kind of been a little bit of a topic of debate, and so I wanted to kind of chat with you about it, and it's the Rams' decision at the end of the game. And so I'll set the scene for you. It's 1st and 10 for the Patriots at the 33-yard line with I think it's 2:25 left in the game. Patriots get called for actually 2 offensive penalties, one holding, one illegal hands to the face, and Romo talked about it during the break, or when it happened, I guess, during the game. And he said he would decline the penalty, which is what the Rams ended up doing. The clock stops. They ended up getting the ball back with 1 minute and 20 seconds left. But the thing is, the Patriots are already in field goal range. They kick a field goal. They go up by 10. And obviously the Rams ended up not scoring at all. But to me, if it's me personally, I'd rather get the ball back down 7 with 40 seconds left as opposed to down 10 with 1 minute, 20 seconds left. I just think there's no question there for me. I'd much rather do that, especially with the rules the way they are now with kickoffs. It's almost impossible to get an onside kick at this point. So to me, it's just like, well, what are we doing? Like take the penalty, push them out of field goal range, and then trust that your defense can get a stop. And then maybe the Patriots will say, well, if we can get a first down here, the game's over. So we're going to throw, and you can force an incompletion, and you don't need to waste the timeout.
Well, let me ask you this, Pat. Because I remember they got, what was it, about 8.5 yards on the second down carry, right? So that moved them to that's pretty much where they ended up kicking it from, and they ended up kicking what, it was a 41 or 42 yarder, right?
Yeah, it was 40.
So before that run, the penalty would have moved them back to the 40-yard line.
43, back to the 43 yard.
Yeah, so I think that makes it a no-brainer. But, right, I think I really do because I was thinking about it with that run that skews it because that's what moved it up. But yeah, you're talking about 10 yards there. I think it's a no-brainer. I think you have to do it, but I can understand it would help if you. I mean, a big part of it is that hindsight though of letting up the 9 yards on the second down second down play, because you're right there. Now it's a 51-yarder, and there's the chances you're probably looking at a 30 or 40%, or 30% less chance of making a 50-yarder than a 43-yarder or a 42-yarder.
Well, on the play though, he picked up 4 yards, so they were at the 29. So they only gave up 5 yards on second down. So they were at the 29-yard line, so that turns it into like a 46-yard field goal or something like that. So you're not even talking about a 50-yard field goal. You're only talking, somewhere in that mid to late 40s range. And so even if they didn't pick up any more yardage after that, that's why to me, I mean, it's really what it is a 15-yard penalty because you're taking the 4 yards off plus you're adding the 10 more. To me, I just looked at it and said, like, what are we doing here? Like, you have a chance to be only down by 1 score as opposed to be down by 2 scores. And I know maybe the Patriots missed a field goal, but like, I don't know. To me, I think you have a better chance of scoring a touchdown there.
And even situationally, like I understand to a degree you want to trust your guys and you trust them to get the stop. But the Patriots are running the ball pretty successfully all game. You're late in the fourth quarter, and they're going to run the ball in any situation they can. Why not put them in 1st and 20 where it's kind of it's an iffy decision for them to actually run it again? Instead, you keep them at 2nd and 6, and it's perfect running territory. I thought that was a really weird decision because, like we saw, I mean, they were blowing him off the ball. So I agree. I would have definitely accepted the penalty.
Yeah. So,
although they did get the stop technically, but that was, even the stop was like half an inch. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, like I said, to me, and even I look at it and say, all right, well, maybe the Patriots ran it, would have run it 3 times. So, you run it once, it goes down to the 2-minute one, and they run it again, and it drops down to minute 20, and then you run it again, it drops down to about 40 seconds. And so, you get the ball back with 35 seconds left. But maybe the Patriots attempt a long field goal, which I don't think they would have. I think they probably would have punted in that situation.
Especially with the way the offense was playing.
Right.
And Ryan Allen.
Yeah. Ryan Allen and Matt Slater, like that's inside the 10 for sure.
Yeah. Which is true. And so, so maybe you're saying, well, shoot, we're going to get the ball at the 5-yard line. But to me, again, at the 5-yard line with 35 seconds left is better than at the 25-yard line with a minute 20 left down 10. It's just like you're not going to score twice. It's kind of stupid. But anyways, that was my opinion on it. That's what I would have done. But hey, whatever. I'm cool with it. So So this has been a lot of fun. Let's get into. So we're going to get into up high, down low, too slow. For those of you that are just listening or listening for the first time, basically what we're going to do. Usually we pick 5, but there's 4 of us. So we're going to have each one of us pick an up high, each one of us pick a down low, and then we have one specific too slow that we're going to talk about. I'm going to start since I'm looking at the screen here. We're going to go for the up high. We're going to go Brian, Spags. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yep. Brian, Spags, and then us 2. All right, Taylor. So you're next, and then I'm last, and then I'll start. We'll do kind of a snake draft. I'll go first, and then Taylor, and then so on and so forth. All right.
All right. So I'm up for the up high, man. My up high is going to be Albert McClellan, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
I was gonna go easy here with like Edelman or something, but I guess you're going.
No, man, like Albert McClellan, like we all know how awesome he was, and with the 2 block punts, I believe in that Miami game. He's been a stalwart on special teams all year. He had the best penalty in the history of the Super Bowl, and I believe the second quarter of that game with that hold on that blitz, that punt block blitz that the Rams brought. McClellan got caught holding, and it saved a punt block touchdown that would have given it almost certainly would have been a touchdown. And next thing you know, I mean that would have been a crippling touchdown to give up, especially with how hot the Rams defense was starting to finally get their footing a little bit, and stick stuff the run a little bit too. Albert McClellan, man, way to bring it home. Way to play some smart football.
That's a great call, and that's another guy we didn't even talk about. Midseason acquisition.
Yep.
The teams were a mess, and then they bring him in,
And Humber.
They
Brought
and
him
Humber,
back.
Humber,
and they turned it right around, and it was like thank God. I mean, they couldn't cover a kick to save their lives, and then all of a sudden they bring these two guys in, and they have a pretty good teams unit. So
they made a play. I think almost every once they got there, they were making plays every week. Some weeks it was multiple. They were really good when they got here.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm going to take the easy way. You guys can call me a homer, but I have to go with my guy, Julian Edelman. I mean, not only is he my second favorite athlete of all time behind Tom Brady, that's probably the reason why I'm picking him. But, I mean, the work that this guy did in this game was unbelievable. They don't win that game with a lot of people, but they really don't win that game without Julian Edelman. They really couldn't move the ball downfield consistently without number 11. And, I think he made some big catches. I mean, and he's just the most clutch receiver we've had here. I mean, he just makes plays, just plays hard. A true Patriot. I love the guy, and I'm easy way out, but MVP, he was unbelievable.
I think I'll go back on the more obscure route. I'll go Ryan Allen. I mentioned him earlier. I mean, he consistently put the Rams inside their 10-yard line. Him and obviously Matt Slater. Very sneaky. I mean, for the Rams to have to drive 90 yards every time they get the ball, I mean, no wonder they couldn't get anywhere. Obviously, the defense was incredible. But it's kind of hard to go on the field knowing you got to go that far every single time.
Everyone was so good.
And Johnny Hekker got a lot of fanfare. Honestly, I thought he had a couple bad punts. I don't really know why he was getting all the attention. Obviously, because he's more famous. But Ryan Allen had maybe his best game of the season. So I'm going to give him some love, too.
All right. Finally got retribution for Hekker stealing his job in college.
And his record, his Super Bowl record.
Yeah, and he broke his record, but what a game. What a game he had. So it's a good call. My up high is going to be a little on the obscure side, too. You brought him up already, but Joe Thuney is my guy. And, the thing is that the offensive line in general did a phenomenal job blocking. The touchdown obviously was right off of his gap, but the big thing to me is that on that final drive where they score a touchdown, both Gronk catches, he's one-on-one against Aaron Donald, the back-to-back defensive player of the year, and Thuney's taken him one-on-one and completely shut him down on both plays and gave Brady time to throw. And, without him, I mean, if Donald gets in his face, then neither of those plays happen. So he had a great game, and like you said, hopefully he's getting paid soon. So we'll see what happens. So that's our 4 up high. I'm going to start off the down low, and Brian, you're probably going to be upset at me because this is the one you probably want, but Chris Hogan. What?
I was going to say him, too.
We're all going to say Chris Hogan.
That was mine. I'm like, please don't say it.
I mean, Chris, this guy, and I like Chris Hogan.
He had an unbelievable Super Bowl 52, by the way. So I was predicted
he was fantastic.
He's going to have a big game Sunday. Ooh, started off slow.
Yeah, and he just, it's one of those things, and I like the guy personally. I mean, I don't know him personally, but he seems like a really cool guy. He's got beautiful kids, and he seems like he has a really cool family life with his wife being a doctor, and she travels back and forth. It's a crazy situation and an interesting story, but man, he was a.
Looks like he lost a step, man. He's on the wrong side of 30. It seems like it really hit him.
Even in Super Bowl 51, he couldn't beat man coverage in Super Bowl 51, and he hasn't really been able to do it since. And so Hogan's my down low for this week.
Am I up for the down low?
Hey, Taylor, you're up. Taylor, we're going.
I'm up.
Okay,
Brian's last this time.
Try to figure it out here. It's not that difficult. It's just a snake draft.
This is tough. All right, I'll stay obscure. I may honestly have to go to the Rams for this one because I was trying to think maybe Patriots defense, but I thought they were really good too. I might honestly go Marcus Peters because he
talked that talk and didn't live up to it.
Not at all. Man coverage. I mean, Edelman put him in a blender. There was the one, I think it was the option route. He got a little creative, but he made Peters look bad. And Peters is not a man corner. He looks like it because he's tall, he's thick, he's pretty long guy, but he's not there. His quickness is bad. He's got terrible footwork, and he was exposed in man coverage by Edelman for some big plays. So I'm going to go with him.
Okay, love it.
For me, I know he made a big kick, probably the biggest kick since Vinatieri. But Pat, my stance on Gostowski. I knew when he kicked the first one, I literally said to my buddy, He's going to miss one this game, so I hope he misses this one. And there he goes, misses. He misses a kick in every Super Bowl, man. It's like it drives me nuts. Yes, he made that big one, but I think if that was like 3 or 4 yards further back, that was missing too. So he's a heart attack when I honestly didn't even want to watch the kick. But
to be fair, he got jinxed by Jim Nance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 31 gets out. I'm like,
that's my buddy. He's gonna miss one. That's why I said he's gonna miss one today. Just miss it now. Just get it out of the way. It's the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, brutal. You know what? And I've had a conversation. I've talked to people about this. Just quickly, I've talked to people about this. To me, personally, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at how many terrible kickers there are in the NFL. And yes,
it's better than what's out there. Put it that way.
Right, and that's the problem. I mean, you have guys like Zerloin and Tucker. But for every one of those guys is 5 other bums who can't hit a field goal anywhere. So, and so that it's a tough situation. I hope they bring someone in to compete with them, but realistically, I guess he's not back, right?
Well, here's the deal. I mean, yeah, he's a free agent, so he's the highest paid kicker per on annual value in the league, and he's now a free agent. Do the Patriots maybe use that franchise tag again on him? It'll be somewhere around 4.9. If they can't get a long-term deal done, he's 13 years in the league. Obviously, it's a little different story when you're a kicker, but that'll definitely be interesting to see what happens there. All right, my down low. Oh man, I think my down low has got to go. I got to go with the Rams offensive line, man. You had 2 weeks to prepare for yes, the Patriots do a lot of complex things. That amoeba front six, they came out with that 6-1 defense they were running, but they did not handle the twist and stunt games at all. And when you have Jared Goff, who's limited in what he does, and needs to be put in good positions, they needed to have a very good game, and they had a really poor game. Blythe, their right guard, he's bad. And Saffold's going to be a free agent. Saffold's, a veteran. That guy's been with that organization for a long time, putting up with having to move different positions and having to teach Greg Robinson and play next to trash guys like him, and for years. And even he wasn't that great this game, and it cost them a Super Bowl. They needed to have a good performance. They needed to put that number one rush defense number one rush offensive line out there, and they just didn't do it. So that is my down low.
That's a great call. Way better than mine.
No, dude, you kidding me? Marcus Peters is solid. It's a great call with the offensive line. I think Goff too. Mm-hmm. I think they said the last 6 games before the Super Bowl, his quarterback rating under pressure was like 14.3 or something ridiculous like that. So you knew that was going to be the key to the game. And they even said it before. Giardi tweeted out before the game that, that a Patriots player thought he was going to crap his pants, and he did because he was under pressure. And I think a lot of it has to do with that offensive line. So I like that. So the too slow, we talked about this before the show. It's kind of a one person. We all decided on it. And it's gotta be Sean McVay. McVay he never changed anything about his offense. He's the guy that was invented.
Figured it got him there,
Right. And it just, like he never adjusted. And, it was shocking really, because it was like they just kept doing the same thing and it wasn't working. And they were like, well, we'll just keep doing it because whatever, it will work eventually. And it just never did. And Belichick coached circles around him.
And he literally praised Belichick for the same thing at the beginning of the game. He's like, what you can guys do, you're always adapting. He praised him for the fact.
Well, they talked about he was like excited. He was like excited. He's like, I can't wait to see the game plan. I can't wait to see their game plan. And that was weird to me. And I understand like wanting to give props and that stuff, but like, man, this is the effing Super Bowl, man. Like my God, you got to be on it. Like now, I am not. I'm still pro.
Bill knew he had him right there. Right when he said that, Bill knew he had him. He's like,
for sure,
back pocket,
for sure. I think too much is being. I think and this is, general sentiment always happens on Twitter like this. Like now everything's swinging the other way. Like, oh man, what a terrible performance out of McVay. And is he really the answer and all this stuff? Like, man, he got Jared Goff to a Super Bowl. Like Jared Goff to a Super Bowl. Like that's how good this guy is. He's 33. We know, like, okay. But this guy is the Pat Mahomes of NFL coaches. Like he's the next guy. He's the next wave. Like this is it. This is the guy. It's this is a tough learning experience. But what did he do after the game? He comes out and he says, "I got out coached. Here it is. I got out coached." He's humble about it. He took it on himself. It's going to suck for him. But yeah, he knows he came in. He got out coached. That's he's going to have plenty of other chances as long as they can get a halfway decent quarterback in there.
And I always thought too, I was like, there's no way a 33-year-old coach in his first Super Bowl is going to outcoach and out-scheme Bill Belichick. Like I knew that going in. I was like, I just can't see that happening, let alone a quarterback who was 7 years old when Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl. Like it's like
another thing that was so crazy, and Pat, you talk about him never changing the game plan. And that's kind of how they were all year, like, hey, this is our best stuff. We have better skill guys than you. Stop us. But like at the end of the game, after the field goal gets kicked by Gostkowski, makes the field goal. It's a 10-point game. He brings over Goff to the sideline, and the mic'd up has him say, all right, here's the deal. So we're gonna, we need to get down there quick, and I'm gonna give you some good stuff now. He says, I'm gonna give you the good stuff now. Like, man, no. Sean, you had to have that out in the first quarter, bro. Like you had to get that out. You had to get that out like 2 weeks ago in the film.
Really saving it. We're saving it.
Like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, you're gonna see prevent, but like, man, you got to get that out of there. That was crazy to me.
It's crazy. You know what? It's interesting. Before the game, I said, and I think I said on the show last week, like I felt like in 15 years. When McVay's coaching in his 6th Super Bowl or whatever, that he's going to be sitting down talking about how he got to this position, and he's going to be saying, "I learned so much from Bill Belichick, and going against him the first time, and just getting my butt whooped and getting out coached, and I learned. It was a learning experience for me, and I didn't realize it was going to be that noticeable, but it's one of those things that I just feel like." Now it's going to be up to McVay to see if he can change what he's been doing. How is he going to learn from this experience? Is it going to make him a better coach, or is it going to make him lose confidence in himself? And so I think you'll really see what McVay is made of. And obviously, and I think the Rams too, they have now a decision to make with Jared Goff. So, a lot of things in flux, but I think McVay still is kind of that next guy. And again, we'll just see how he responds, from this game. So,
and it's funny you bring up like how he may learn from Belichick. I was thinking about that today. Belichick could have made this a very scary place for NFL defenses because now McVay, he's going to see, I got to be more adaptable. I got to, be flexible because his scheme itself is really good at taking advantage, like I said earlier, of defensive principles. But now he sees, when you face the mastermind, that's not enough. And you really just gave him another, tool in his toolbox to be like, all right, now I'm going to adjust this way and I'm going to tailor my offense to make it even harder for you to prepare. So, honestly, I'm kind of scared by what we're going to see from McVay in the future, but I'm also excited as a football fan.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a great point.
The last thing I'll say about the Rams though is that their window is still very much open. They still got that rookie quarterback deal that everybody and their brother is they're building their teams around these rookie quarterback deals that are ticking time bombs. If you want to win one Super Bowl in a 4-year window, cool, build your team that way. But the Patriots obviously are doing it a little differently and having some pretty good success. But the Rams window, they still have some time on the end of this thing where obviously they've got their big contracts down on their big players, and if they have a good draft this year, they're going to be very scary for the next couple of years. And Wade Phillips was talking about it today, how they're planning on kicking the door in next year. So they'll still be that same core, and they're still going to be a scary team in the NFC. The NFC is still going to be nasty.
Get a run blocking linebacker and a run stuffing linebacker, and they might actually have a pretty good shot at stopping the run more consistently because Littleton got thrown around in that game.
Yeah.
Was he the one that no, never mind. I was thinking Hightower, but Hightower plays defense for the Patriots. So he probably didn't lay out Littleton. So, but gentlemen, it's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun. Obviously, how could it not be? The Patriots have won the Super Bowl, but But it's been a lot of fun. You guys are super knowledgeable, so we appreciate you coming on. Why don't we, Brian, we'll start with you, but where can people find you, interact with you? Obviously, you write for Pat's Pulpit, but where else can they find you?
Yeah, at bphillips_SB for SB Nation. Got an article coming out tomorrow about this Kyle Van Noy extension that I expect. I'm going to be doing a series until free agency starts over the next month about priority stuff that we're going to be calling out the Patriots house cleaning series. So be a lot of cool stuff coming up.
Great. Awesome. And Taylor, go ahead, man.
Yeah, awesome. So my handle is at TKYLES39, TKyles39. And I'm actually going to be working on tomorrow. I'm going to be coming out with a thread on some of the guys on the defense that really didn't get as much fanfare. I mentioned earlier the defensive line was really great, but you don't really notice those guys because they're the big bodies that get attention, all those things. So I'm going to try to put a spotlight on them and try to turn that into an article as well. So be on the lookout.
Taylor, Adam Butler.
Sir. Adam, he's in there.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in there, baby. I got you covered.
Oh yeah, we love the Adam Butler, man. And Pat's Pulpit is going to be loaded because I'm working on an article right now. I was at a little event with the GOAT Tom Brady today, in person, like steps from was crazy. So, shaving his beard off for charity. So, working on that article as well. So, hopefully, around the time this comes out, that'll be out too. So, a lot of stuff on the pulpit, gentlemen. We really appreciate you joining us. As always, it's been great. Spags, it's always fun, talking with you. And
absolutely.
Bringing two more guys on was a lot of fun.
Thank you guys again.
So
we'll do it.
That's it, man. That's the whole damn episode. We're not even doing anything afterwards. So have a great week, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, so nice. Have a great one, guys.